it is very important that you start writing down the answers. Start with very basic things that you can attempt previous year question papers, and that is where this discussion is going to help you a lot with respect to your preparation for the upcoming mains examination. Describe the lawmaking process in the Legislative Assembly of Uttar Pradesh. In 2-3 lines, you're going to mention the context of the question. A bill is introduced by a member of the legislature who is not a party of same party to the government, then it is called as a private member bill. It is also called as ordinary bill. So again, until 1973 made a lot of changes in the constitution. The constitution has assigned exclusive and special powers to Rajya Sabha to protect what? Federalism. ये लिखना जरूरी है. Keywords, underline this. Keywords, federalism, and ensure continuity in governance. Hello everyone, welcome to all of you. So yesterday we discussed questions of 2023 examination. One question was left, which was of UP specific question. And then we're going to discuss the questions of 2024. So primarily there are 6 questions which we are going to discuss today. 1 question from 2023 examination and 5 questions from 2024 examination, specifically from the topic of polity, right? And I hope all of you are preparing well for the examination, and you need to make sure that again you start practicing the answer writing component, because it is the test of your answer writing skills, not of your knowledge. So whatever things you have read, whatever things you have read, how many times you have revised, it is very important that you start writing down the answers. Start with very basic things that you can attempt previous year question papers, and that is where this discussion is going to help you a lot with respect to your preparation for the upcoming mains examination. So let's start with the very first question. Describe the lawmaking process in the Legislative Assembly of Uttar Pradesh. Again, though question specifically mention the term Uttar Pradesh, but in general, every state has a same lawmaking process, right? Just like we have a lawmaking process in the parliament of the country at union level, similarly at state level we have a process of lawmaking, right? But there is a differentiation. Some states have a bicameral legislature, that is having 2 houses. Some states have a single legislature, that is only legislative assembly, not the council. So UP is a state which has both legislative assembly, that is Vidhan Sabha, and legislative council, that is Vidhan Parishad. So that is where the slight difference is going to happen with respect to how bills are passed in the state legislature of Uttar Pradesh. So the question basically asks, describe the lawmaking process, that how law is being made in the Legislative Assembly of Uttar Pradesh. So again, in general, in the introduction of an answer, we can talk about the composition of state legislature of Uttar Pradesh. That is, it consists of 2 houses. One is the upper house, that is state legislative assembly, called as Vidhan Sabha, and the state legislative council, that is Vidhan Parishad, and both of these legislatures have a role in the lawmaking process. Clear? And that is how you're going to mention. If possible, if you are remembering, please mention the article numbers. That again, article 196 to 200 talks about that how exactly law is being made in state legislatures of India, right? So that's how it is. So being a bicameral state, bills must be passed by both legislative assemblies, that is the lower house Vidhan Sabha, and the upper house, that is legislative council or Vidhan Parishad, after receiving the consent of the governor or assent of the governor. That is how you're going to very briefly in 2-3 lines you're going to mention the context of the question, right? Thumb rule क्या था, मैंने बताया था आपको कल. Thumb rule is if we are confused that what should I write in the introduction of an answer, ask yourself what is the theme of the question over here. So again, this is talking about how law is being made in the state legislature of Uttar Pradesh. So again, we can briefly define the composition of state legislature. it requires the bill law requires to be passed by both the houses, and again going to be assigned by the governor of that particular state. Clear? So with this, introduction has been written. Now we are going to mention the stages of passing of a bill, that what is the process, because it is a 12 marker question. So again, we need to discuss in a detailed manner in the 200 words, of course. So you need to understand that again, primarily once you have read the legislative lawmaking process in the country, there are three types of bills, right? On the basis of where they are originating, who is introducing that bill in the legislature. So we have four types of bills. One is ordinary bill, one is a private member bill, one is a money bill, and the fourth one is a constitutional amendment bill. So constitutional amendment bill is a special bill which can only be passed by the parliament of the country, not by state legislatures. So again, constitutional amendment bill is bypassed from here. So we are left with how many bills? 3 bills. So again, we are going to discuss these 3 bills in detail. So depending upon who is introducing that bill in the legislature, the bill is getting named as an ordinary bill or a private member bill. If a member of the legislature who belongs to the ruling party of the legislature, if he is introducing that bill, it is basically called as government bills, right? Or maybe that is again called as ordinary bill as well. If a bill is introduced by a member of the legislature who is not a party of same party to the government, then it is called as a private member bill. It is also called as ordinary bill. So again, ordinary bill is a name. It can either be government bill if it is introduced by a ruling party member, and it is going to be called as a private member bill if it is introduced by any member who is not from the ruling political party. Clear? Then we have the other kind, that is called as money bill. Just like in the union government or in parliament, money bill has a special status. Similarly, it enjoys special status in the state legislatures as well. So that is the process we're going to mention systematically. First reading, second reading, third reading, government assent. That's the process we need to follow in my answer writing process as well. Clear? So very briefly to start with, that how is the bill being introduced. Number one is we are introducing the bill. So ordinary bill, it can either be what? It can either be a government bill if it is introduced by a person or a legislator who belongs to the ruling political party, or it can be a private member bill if it is introduced by a member of legislature who is not belonging to the ruling political party. Clear? So either it can be introduced by a minister or a private member, right? And how it is being passed? In the first process, a motion has to be introduced in the legislature, that again we are introducing this bill in the parliament. So again, you know the idea of different kind of motions. So a motion is being passed, and again the motion is discussing that again a special leave of the bill to introduce the bill. Clear? Then if that motion is getting passed, once the motion is introduced, it is published in the official gazette, right? And then after this, there is no further discussion on the bill. The bill is only introduced by let's say passing a particular motion, and once the motion is getting passed, the bill is officially published in the official gazette, right? So no detailed discussion on policy takes place at this particular stage. Yahan sirf introduce kar rahe hain bill ko. Now then happens the second stage of the bill, or second reading, what we call as that the consideration stage. That in this particular stage, this is where the bill is sent to different committees depending upon the nature of the bill, and it is being discussed and deliberated in the respective committees, right? So the general discussion on the bills takes place. That is called as a consideration stage, or we can call it as second reading as well. So the house basically discusses the principle कि ये bill हम क्यों ला रहे हैं. Let's say we are talking about any bill which is going to change the maybe some of the agricultural law in the particular state. Then what is the purpose of the bill? Why we are introducing that bill? What is the principle of the bill? All of these things are discussed in the second stage, that is the second reading. And after the discussion of objectives and principles in the respective house, then the bill is taken into consideration immediately. After that, the bill is not getting passed. you understand there are different kind of committees in the of state legislature as well. So these are the committees who have an expertise in specific kind of bills, right? So that bill is being sent to the committee. Now committee takes up the bill and thoroughly understands the different angles which have been mentioned in that particular bill, and it goes for a thorough consideration of that particular bill. So again, committees are of different types. Either committee will be from the state legislative assembly, or the committee could also be from the state legislative council, or there could be joint committee as well. So depending upon the nature of the bill is being getting sent to the respective committee or a joint parliamentary committee, right? So this is how it happens, and then after this, the committee gives a thorough consideration of the bill. It can suggest some of the recommendations or some of the amendments. Let's say if I am observing the bill, if I feel this clause of the bill is something which needs to be reconsidered, so I can propose that again this is a change I need to have in the bill. So that is the power of the committee. But again, the amendments suggested are not bounded or to be accepted by the respective house in which that bill is being introduced. Clear? So the or the bill can also be circulated for public opinion. Then at this stage only, the consideration stage, the committee examines a bill clause by clause, as I discussed. It consults respective experts on public and submits a detailed report. Let's say the bill talks about changes in agriculture. So the agriculturists or the persons who have an expertise in agriculture could be sent that particular bill, and they will be considering that bill on a expertise point of view, right? The bill may be let's say returned with suggested amendments at this particular stage. Then after the bill is reaching the house, then again the house considers each clause and votes upon the proposed amendments. कि हमने बोला कि committee tell कि these are the few amendments you need to take up. Now the house is going to vote upon that again whether we are accepting these changes which are being suggested by the committees or we are not agreeing to it. So that is something which is being voted upon at the second stage after committee sends its recommendations to the respective house. Then if any of the changes which are suggested by the committee, if they are accepted by the house through the voting process, then that changes are incorporated in the respective bill. Okay? So this is where the second reading stops. Clear? So what happens over here? In the second reading, the bill is introduced, and the bill is of course the objectives and principles of the bill is being discussed in the house. It is being sent to the respective committee. It is being sent for public opinion. After committee examines the respective bill, right, and then it suggests some of the changes if it is required. Then the house takes up that bill and vote upon the the amendments which are being made by the committee, if they are accepting it, number one. If the amendments are being accepted, then that amendments are being incorporated in that specific bill. That happens at the second stage. Clear? Then in the next stage, the bill is actually getting passed. So the final form of the bill, that again which contains the original bill plus the changes which have been made by the committee stage, that is being voted upon in the house. At this particular stage, it is just a voting on the bill, because we have discussed each bill clause by clause, right? Now no new changes, no new amendments can be done at this particular stage. Only the bill is in the final form is passed by a simple majority of members present and voting. Understand, the majority over here is what? Simple majority, because it is a ordinary bill, right? And then it is the same thing happens, that again it goes to the second house, that is legislative council, right? Now once a bill reaches the legislative council, the council has four options. What is four options? It can pass the bill without any amendments, number one. It can pass the bill by suggesting some amendments, and that if the amendments will be sent back to the legislative assembly. Then it can also reject the bill, or it can do no action on the bill and just sit on the bill, right? So keep it pending up to the time period, of course, here is 3 months, right? So that is, these are things you need to mention very clearly in the answers. That's how, because they're asking the exact process of passage of bills in state legislatures of Uttar Pradesh. So the time limit here is of course 3 months, right? Now, if the council is rejecting the bill, so will the law not become? So that is not the case. So here assembly has overriding powers as far as the passage of bills in the state legislatures of bicameral state legislatures are concerned. Clear? So if the council rejects the bill, then proposes unacceptable amendments, ki aise amendments bol rahi hai which is not acceptable, which is not right, which is not accepted by the first house, which has introduced that particular bill, then in that cases, or keep it pending, then the assembly can again pass that bill again, right? And if the council rejects or delays the bill or do not anything on the bill, they can do it for up to 1 month. After 1 month, the bill, even if the council has not passed it, even if they are sitting on the bill automatically gets passed from the respective council. So thus, for ordinary bills, the assembly has overriding powers, that again, even if they are first, of course, they have an option to accept the bill, they can send the amendments, whatever it is. Now, if the second house again send back the bill without accepting those amendments, then the legislative council has no option. After 1 month, even if they do not do anything, if they pass it, well and good. If they don't pass it, within 1 month, the bill automatically gets passed from the council. Clear? Then after, of course, just like after the bill is being sent to the president in case of union bills or the central bills, in case of state legislature as well, the bill is sent to the governor for giving the assent. Again, governor has basic powers. It can give assent to the bill, then bill becomes an act. It can withhold assent to the bill and the bill will not become an act. It can return the bill except for money bill. We are discussing the special features of money bill. And let's say it has, the governor ne kya bola ki the bill is being sent to the governor. So the governor has option that it can send back the bill only once for reconsideration. If the bill is sent back by the respective house to the governor again after this reconsideration, then the governor has to give assent to the bill. That is being discussed over here, right? And then there is again an option that again the governor has an option to keep the bill for consideration of the President of India. This is where we talk about that how there is a unitary bias towards the federal features of Indian Constitution, right? So again, it is not obligatory for the governor except one situation, that if any bill is proposing any changes or affecting the High Court powers, then that bill has to be mandatorily reserved for presidential assent. I think this was in news many times. Why? Because this Article 200 was being misused, and Supreme Court has recently using Article 142 gave a judgment that again there is a time-bound manner in which the bills has to be passed by the respective governors. Clear? So that is a basic idea about passage of ordinary bills. Then as there are other bill also is a money bill. So similar, just like money bills enjoy a special status by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha has no power with respect to money bills, similarly at state level as well, the assembly has special powers with respect to money bill, and the council have limited or in fact no power with respect to the passage of money bills. Similar, hai? Nothing different. So again, it can be introduced just like money bills can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. Here, money bill can only be introduced in the assembly. In the case of central bills, it is required prior approval for the President of India. Here, approval is required from the respective governor. So on governor's recommendation only, the bill is getting passed. That is why it is obligatory for the governor to pass the money bill once it is being sent to him for his assent, right? That is the first thing. Then the council, again, Rajya Sabha has limited powers. It cannot amend the bill, right? So they cannot amend the bill and it may only make recommendations, and that too within a time limit of 14 days. Whether to accept or not accept, it is exclusive advantage or the privilege of the Lok Sabha. If let's say Rajya Sabha is suggesting some changes, it is up to the Lok Sabha whether they want to accept it or not, right? Similarly, in case of state bills, state money bills as well, once the council is sending back the bill for, let's say, let's say with some amendments, then it is up to the assembly if they want to accept it, if they do not want to accept it. Even if they don't want to accept it, the bill is deemed to be passed within 14 days after it has taken 14 days in the respective council, right? The governor cannot return the money bill, right? It must give assent to the bill or reserve it for the president. So again, it has two options. Clear? Now money, it is because it is up to the discretion of the governor that if it wants to keep the bill for reconsideration by the President of India. So that is a basic process of passage of bills in case of state legislatures. Primarily, there are two types of bills. One is ordinary bill. Again, depending upon the nature who is introducing the bill, it can be called as a government bill or a private member bill. Same passage through simple majority. Then again, it reaches the council. What is the process which the council? Then with respect to money bills, just like the union money bills, the state money bills are also passed in the same process with limited powers of the legislative council. Clear? Now, in conclusion, we can briefly mention that again the lawmaking process in Uttar Pradesh Assembly reflects India's what? Federal parliamentary design, wherein combining democratic deliberation with procedural safeguards. Although the council participates, the assembly retains the decisive authority, ensuring that directly elected house shapes the state legislation. क्योंकि आप देखना, हमने देखा ना कि council has limited powers with respect to passage of both ordinary bills and in fact no power with respect to passage of state money bills. That is how you're going to conclude the answer. Clear? Moving on to the next question. Again, this question is slightly different. You are not, the theme is you're going to write a very short note, right? So in short note based questions, it is the whole idea of writing down an introduction, body, conclusion can be avoided, right? If you want to write, completely fine, because in short note you have a limited let's say word limit, and in that limited word limit you have to explain the entire topic which is being discussed over here. So again, the question here asks, we are starting with 2024 questions of prelims. So write a short note on composition of Constituent Assembly. What is Constituent Assembly? Our India got independent in the year 1947. So technically we were left with no government. But we are going to get independence in the year 1947. It was decided a few years back, right? So the Constituent Assembly, it was also decided that we need to write our own constitution. So for that writing of our own constitution, we required people to be, some people to get elected and write constitution for the country. So that group of people who are going to write the Indian constitution is called as Constituent Assembly. Okay? So what exactly was the composition of Constituent Assembly? That is being asked in this particular question with a short note. Clear? So we can mention the Constituent Assembly of India was formed under the Cabinet Mission Plan of 1946, and again the assembly consisted of both elected as well as nominated members. ठीक है, कुछ लोग इसमें elect हुए थे indirect election and some people were nominated in this particular thing, right? So that's how we can mention. So again, the assembly composition was of what? Partly elected and partly nominated, and it was going to make the draft of the Indian Constitution, and for the very first time they met on 9th of December 1946. Clear? Now let's discuss about what was the composition, how many people were there in that particular assembly. So the strength allocation was, the total membership of the assembly was kept to 389. ये numbers आपको याद रखना जरूरी है because the question specifically asks the composition, so you need to remember these specific numbers for your examination. Clear? So then how are these एक country में 389 seats होंगे, how it was decided? It was decided on the basis of 1 seat per million of population. So per million population, we had 1 seat for the assembly, right? And the nature was, some of the members of this out of this 389, some were partly elected from the British Indian provinces. कुछ provinces थी हमारे country में which was administered and governed by the British provinces, and some were princely states. Clear? So both of them got a say in that particular assembly. So some people out of the 389 were partly elected, and partly elected from where? British provinces, and some were partly nominated from the Indian princely states. Clear? Then the representation, अब इसमें से from the British Indian provinces, out of 389, 296 seats were given to them, right? So out of them, 292 seats were given for 11 governors provinces. So there are certain provinces in the British provinces which had governors, right? So 292 seats were given to them, and 4 seats were given for the areas which were under chief commissioners provinces. Okay, basic facts, you need to remember them, right? And how these 296 people were elected, what was the process of electing them? They were elected indirectly through what we call as proportional representation by single transferable vote system. Okay, you must have read that in the election of President of India. We use that particular process of election, right? So the method was indirect election by provincial legislative assembly. So people of the country were not voting these 296 people. So we had provincial legislative assemblies. So in these assemblies, people have elected them. So now they were electing the members of this in British Indian who were going to be under the Constituent Assembly, right? And using what? Proportional representation by single transferable vote system, right? And the seats were of course divided on communal lines. So out of these 296 seats, some seats were reserved exclusively for Muslim people, some were exclusively reserved for Sikh people, and some were for general, for all religion, right? So that is how communal seats were there. So what is the idea of communal seats? It means out of, let's say there are 10 seats for Muslim community, it means only Muslims from that particular community can vote in that particular constituency, right? So that's how it was there as far as the British provinces were concerned. After elections happened, so the Congress won 208 seats, the Muslim League got 73 seats, and other independent candidates got 15 seats. That was the result. Now we come down to the princely states. Out of 389, 296 we have discussed. Now the princely states consisted of 93 seats. So again, here there was no election, there was only nomination by the respective rulers of the princely states. And initially, until, because you understand that again the partition, the independence of India was there, but again we also had the partition of the country, right? So many princely states were not encouraged enough to nominate members to the Constituent Assembly until the partition was done for the country, right? So many princely states did not send representatives until the acceptance of the Mountbatten Plan of June 1947, that is the Partition of India plan, right? So post the partition, you understand here, 73 seats were from Muslim League. Now in 1947 July, India was partitioned. Now the composition changed. Why? Because the Muslim League were not going to have a say in the making of Indian constitution because of the partition. So following the Muslim League withdrawal from the provinces, that became Pakistan, the membership reduced from 389 to 299. Clear? So the assembly continued with the limited 299 seats, who were the ones who wrote India's constitution, what we see today, right? So again, the assembly also had a sense of inclusivity, where again people belonging to different religion, different caste, people belonging to scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, all of them were included in that particular assembly, right? So again, very important fact, Mahatma Gandhi ji was not there in the Constituent Assembly of India, right? So that's the basic composition, how it happened, what was the initial composition, how people were elected, some people were nominated, what happened after the partition, and how it is called as an inclusive constituent assembly because it had members from different religion, different caste, scheduled tribes. That makes the assembly an inclusive assembly, and that's where we see the Constitution of India has been discussed as the most comprehensive constitutions across the world. Clear? That's how you're going to write down the answer. ठीक है? इसमें इतना आप उसका लोड नहीं ले सकते हैं for writing introduction conclusion because it is just a short note question. Clear? The next question is, how does Indian Constitution compare with other modern constitutions? How does the Indian Constitution compare with other modern constitutions in terms of flexibility and rigidity? So what is the understanding of first flexibility and rigidity? So again, Indian Constitution was written in the year enforced in the year 1950. Since 1950, we are having year in 2025. So India has went through a lot of changes, both structurally, fundamentally, at societal level, economical level, political level. So the constitution makers were very much clear that again, as Indian society is going to progress after 1950, there are sometimes situations wherein the constitutions need to be changed. Right? And that is where under Article 368 of the Constitution, they gave a scope to the future the future legislators that again, as and when it is required, you can change the Constitution. Right? But that does not mean we can change the entire Constitution. So Indian Constitution is a blend of rigidity and flexibility. Some provisions of the Constitution can be amended or can be changed in a simple manner without any major, let's say, process or a change, but some provisions has to be changed. If they are getting changed, there is a very rigid process, so that again, such changes cannot be easily made to the Indian Constitution. So that is where the question asks, please compare this feature of the Indian Constitution, that it is both flexible as well as rigid, with it comparing it with other modern constitutions of the world. So again, the classic in such cases need not to go for many other countries, just because majorly the constitutions is inspired from the US and the UK constitution, which are also called as the biggest, let's say, democratic countries, right? So you can mention these two countries, the process of amending the constitution in US and UK, you can compare them, and that's how you're going to give the answer, right? It is a 12 marker question. So again, you are going to discuss them in a comprehensive manner. Lastly, you're going to discuss why Indian Constitution is called as a blend of rigidity as well as flexibility. ये भी लिखना होगा आपका answer में, right? So in introduction, you can mention that again, how Indian Constitution, as I discussed, is a unique blend of rigidity and flexibility, what it has, right? It avoids extremes by adopting both features from both highly flexible constitutions like Britain, right, and the rigid constitution also Britain. So again, India में बोला गया ना कि the Indian constitution makers has been inspired from many leading constitutions of different countries, right? So that is where our constitution is also sometimes called as a borrowed constitution. हमने सारे constitutions को अच्छे से पढ़ा. Then the constitution makers borrowed all good features of the other constitutions and incorporated them in the Indian constitution in a manner which was suitable to India. लोग बोलते हैं, just a discussion, that again people usually tell कि Ambedkar ji ने he had just copy pasted the constitutions of different parts of the country and written the Indian constitution. No sir, that is not a true fact. If you understand, we have a concept of secularism of the country, which we of course have borrowed from European countries. But again, the European model of secularism or the Western model of secularism is different from what we follow in our country. We have a philosophy of socialism, but again, socialism as a philosophy originated in the USSR. But the socialism which we follow in USSR is completely Marxist or capitalist of nature. But now here, Marxist in nature. But here we have a Gandhian form of socialism. So again, different features have been borrowed, but they have been blended and incorporated with the need of Indian society. Clear? So let's discuss the comparison of rigidity and flexibility in terms of the constitutions of USA, which is completely rigid in nature. USA constitution को amend करना काफी मुश्किल है because it's completely rigid. The British constitution, in fact, British is unwritten constitution. So any ordinary law can, or anything can be made in the constitution itself. So again, completely flexible, कुछ भी change कर सकते हो. But India is not completely flexible, not completely rigid. It is a blend of both of them. That's how you're going to write down the answer. Clear? आपको ये पता होना चाहिए लिखना कैसे है. ठीक है? So here you're going to compare. So इसमें the fundamentally you can give this kind of a comparative chart so that the examiner is clear that again how you have differentiated the flexible and the rigid features of both US and UK constitutions and compared it with the Indian constitution. Clear? So now we can mention the nature. So status the Britain has unwritten constitution. So again, they do not have any. Just like we have a single piece of document that we call as Indian Constitution, UK में कोई document नहीं. It is a completely unwritten constitution, right? So again, that does not mean the laws are not codified. So again, laws are codified, but they do not have a single book which we can call as a British Constitution, right? So that is why it is an unwritten constitution, uncodified. And Parliament is completely sovereign. Parliament has a complete power to write the constitution, to change the constitution as and when they require it, right? Indian constitution is called as the lengthiest constitution. It is a written constitution combining both flexibility with entrenched provisions. And the US constitution is a very simple, very short constitution, right? Written constitution with strong entrenchment. Then the amending process of the constitution of UK, which is completely flexible. So there is no specific procedure. Any ordinary piece, agar Parliament, as example, if the Parliament is not going to make a law on any particular matter, in a similar manner, the UK constitution can be amended through an ordinary law by the Parliament. As simple as that, right? So no specific procedure of amendment have been mentioned. Just like an ordinary law, the constitution can be amended, right? But in case of India, amendment process is mentioned under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. Under Article 368, it contains three ways. One is the constitution can be amended, the amendment can be made in three ways. Number one is some of the administrative level changes. अगर आप किसी city का नाम बदलना चाह रहे हैं, you are going to change the name of a particular state, or few basic administrative changes which is not going to alter the philosophy of the constitution, alter the meaning of the constitution features, so they can be amended through simple majority. ऐसे changes के लिए आपको ज़्यादा fight करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. You can the Parliament can amend it through a simple majority. That is number one. Then but this feature is talking about what? The flexible nature of amending of Indian Constitution. This is where it becomes slightly rigid. जैसे जैसे आगे बढ़ोगे, that's where it becomes rigid. Article 368 mentions two ways in which we can amend the Constitution. Some amendments which is going to alter some of the core fundamentals of the Constitution, right, or some features of the Constitution, then they require called as special majority. That is majority of 2/3 of the members present and voting plus 50% of the total membership of the House, right? But now, as Indian Constitution is called as a quasi-federal constitution, there are some features of the Constitution which is having a federal nature, right? So if we are going to change any federal features of the Indian Constitution, so apart from special majority, we require a ratification of half of the state legislatures of India, right? So that is where this two process making it quite rigid in nature. So Indian Constitution is a blend of both flexibility plus rigidity, that is being explained over here. Then in US, if you are going to compare it with US has a very strict way of, or a very rigid way of amending the constitution. So the amendment must be approved by two-thirds. Two-thirds is the very highest majority. So two-thirds of both the houses of Congress and 3/4 of the respective state legislatures, right? This is where it is extremely difficult to alter or to change the US constitution, right? Then its impact, अब इतना flexible होने का reason क्या, impact क्या आएगा in terms of this? So it means the British constitution can be changed very easily. If any changes are sought to be made to the constitution of Britain, it can be passed through an ordinary law and it can be easily, let's say, changed, right? For example, quick adaptation on political and social changes. Example, rapid welfare reforms, devolution to Scotland and Wales. Now here, Indian constitution is a blend of both flexibility and rigidity. It means कुछ administrative changes करने हैं, they can be done in a very simple manner, but some changes which are altering the nature of Indian constitution, that requires to be done through a special majority. Plus, if any feature is going to change the federal nature of working of the country, that requires special majority plus ratification of half of the states. So again, it is, the impact is what? Simple changes can be done in a very simple manner, easily ho jayega, but some changes which is altering the constitution itself, right, then it is requiring a rigid process of approval, right? For example, the fundamental values, federal balance, we have discussed this. Then in case of US में, sir, it is very rigid. Example, कि we have only 27 amendments in the last 230 plus years of making of US Constitution. ऐसे numbers को अगर आप याद करते हैं, if you know this, please write it down so that the examiner would get an understanding that student has some kind of factual information through which he is substantiating the fact that the US Constitution is very rigid. ठीक है, it is not mandatory, but again अगर आप लिख लेंगे, अगर मैंने बताया आपको, अभी याद हो गया, right? So remember it in such manner through these discussions and analysis of previous year question papers. You're going to remember some facts as well, right? So update them in your respective content or your notes. That's how you're going to use them in your answer writing process. Then in case of ultimate check, again Parliament के पास absolute power है. So again there is no check over here. In case of here, sir, the major problem here was कि if we are amending the constitution, if the parliament has made some changes to the constitution by even passing through special majority, even passing through, let's say, ratification of half the states, right? Chances है कि कुछ ऐसा system हो जाए हमारे country में कि the political party is a majority in both parliament and state legislature. Now they have an option that they can alter the constitution itself. So many times, to understand, fundamental rights was altered, right? Right to property was moved from a fundamental right status to a constitutional right status, right? So there have been many changes. So Parliament until 1973 made a lot of changes in the constitution, and it had a supreme power in altering the constitution of India. But it was seen that again, if we change the constitution as and when we require it, then how are we respecting the views of the Constituent Assembly or the forefathers of our constitution who have written this constitution for us? They must have envisioned India for the next 100 or 200 years, and then of course they would have written this constitution. So it was seen that again the parliament had a superpower with respect to amending the Indian constitution, right? So in the very famous case of Keshavananda Bharati case in 1973, a new term came up which we call as a basic structure of Indian constitution. It means everything in the constitution can be changed, but it should not alter the basic structure doctrine. But Supreme Court in this case did not define what do we understand by basic structure doctrine. ठीक है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कहीं लिखा नहीं है कि बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर क्या है जिसको आप चेंज नहीं कर सकते, राइट. सुप्रीम कोर्ट आफ्टर दिस केस time and again have clarified what constitutes the basic structure of Indian Constitution. For example, preamble. For example, you can talk about election process. For example, you can talk about independence of judiciary. For example, you can talk about the ideas of secularism. All of these are basic structure doctrine. ये time and again Supreme Court update करती है, and this is something which cannot be changed in the Indian Constitution. Similarly, in case of US, of course, we have a checks and balances where again Supreme Court can review the presidential veto and state approval restrain the amending powers of the changes made to US Constitution. So we are clear on this. We have compared this. Now we are going to very quickly also mention, because it is a 12 marker question, so आपको बिल्कुल थोड़ा लिखना चाहिए कि how there is a balanced synthesis which has been made in the through the amending process of Indian Constitution. So some provisions are very flexible. For example, amendments affecting schedules of the Constitution, administrative matters require only simple majority, and the Parliament has amended the Constitution 100+ times, proving responsiveness and adaptability. Then it allows timely reforms. Example, GST, right to education, anti-defection matters. All of these, which when making some administrative changes, have very timely implemented as required only simple majority. But there are some rigid features. For example, they require special majority plus ratification of half of the states. Again, we have also a safety valve which we call as basic structure doctrine. इन चीजों को आप जो basic structure के अंदर आता है, आप इसको change बिल्कुल नहीं कर सकते. That shows the rigidity of the Indian Constitution to get amended, and it ensures continuity, prevents majoritarian overreach. सर power हो सकता है, हमने बताया ना कि ये दोनों हो गए. If a political party has a majority in the parliament, the same political party is also there in most of the ruling states. It is a possible scenario that again the constitution can be amended very easily. So this is where we have again gone through another check, that is a basic structure doctrine. Clear on this? So in conclusion, we can mention that again how Indian Constitution strikes a balance between both flexibility and rigidity. Some features can be amended in a simple manner, which is catering to the evolving national needs. Some principles are rigid enough so that they cannot be changed very easily. So the unique synthesis again ensures that again how Indian Constitution is both enduring, and the enduring means continuing on the same philosophy on which the constitution makers have written the constitution, and also adaptable to the recurring changes of Indian society, right? Then the next question is again a very classic question, easy question hai kafi ye, right? So you can mention very easily that what are the special powers of Rajya Sabha vis-a-vis Lok Sabha, right? So the Indian Parliament consists of two houses. I'll just explain it very briefly. One house is called as the lower house called Lok Sabha, the House of People, and this is called as Rajya Sabha, the House of Elders, or the representatives of the respective states. So in Rajya Sabha, the feature of having two houses is called as bicameralism, right? So this is where the people are directly elected. So if I am a person, if I am in a democracy, how I'm ensuring my participation in democracy? I am electing my representative, and that representative is sent to the Lok Sabha, right? Similarly, we have a Rajya Sabha. Here people are indirectly elected, not directly, indirectly elected, right? So technically Rajya Sabha is called as representative of the respective states. ठीक है, अब क्यों रखा गया पार्लियामेंट? बिकॉज पार्लियामेंट द यूनियन गवर्नमेंट, we have discussed three lists: union list, state list, concurrent list. So many times there is a possibility that again if the parliament has only single house, there is a chances of misuse of power by Lok Sabha. So to create a check on Lok Sabha, to have the respective states of the country have a say in the law making process at a union level, we have constituted what we call as Rajya Sabha, which is called as representatives of respective state, again balancing the idea of Indian federalism. Clear? So that's how it is. You can mention very briefly कि क्या है Indian bicameral, which we have discussed. So again, India's bicameral parliament consists of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, right, representing the states. Although Lok Sabha of course has a special power, again money bill की केस में देखा है, right, and legislative authority, the constitution has assigned exclusive and special powers to Rajya Sabha to protect what? Federalism. ये लिखना जरूरी है, keywords, underline this, keywords, federalism, and ensure continuity in governance. Many times Lok Sabha is a non-permanent house. It is there for only 5 years. हर 5 साल में election होता है. This is a permanent house because the law making process of the country should be continuous. So in case Lok Sabha is not in session, Parliament, the Rajya Sabha is ensuring the continuity in the legislative functioning of the country. We'll discuss such scenarios as well, right? So again, basing this special powers reflect what? The House's unique role in safeguarding state interest and national stability. Because the question asks special powers of Rajya Sabha, तो ये theme आपको लिखना जरूरी है in the introduction, which is telling that again how special and what is the utility of Rajya Sabha being special status. Clear? So there are 4 instances where again primarily 2 है, but again technically 4. Number 1 is Article 249. Again we have discussed there are how many lists? 3 lists. One is union list, one is state list, and the third one is concurrent list. Who can make a law in list? The Parliament. Who can make a law in the state list? The state legislature. Who can make a law with both Parliament and the state legislature? But Article 249 says कि if there is some kind of situation wherein on a matter of national interest, Rajya Sabha can empower the Parliament of the country to make a law on what matter? On a state list matter. कि कोई भी matter in case of national interest, if a law has to be made on a state list subject, then Rajya Sabha, who is a representative of respective states in the Parliament, can empower the Parliament to do so. ठीक है? Simple. So special power किसका है? राज्य सभा का, under Article 249. Clear? It tells the normally state list of state legislature का है. Again, if a resolution is passed by Rajya Sabha by what majority? 2/3 of majority of the members present and voting, declaring that in a national interest, a state law can be made by the Parliament of India. So Rajya Sabha has an exclusive power, and the resolution remains valid for 1 year and can be repeated any number of times. Simple. So why it is there? It ensures national coordination when issues transcend state boundaries. Example, अगर terrorism हो रहा है, environmental threats हो रहे हैं, so in certain matters it may be required to make a law on a state list or a state list subject by the Parliament for maintaining uniformity in certain special circumstances. ये ensure करता है Article 249, but only Rajya Sabha has a power to authorize the Parliament to make a law on a state list subject under Article 249. Then we have Article 312. So all India services, again all India services, basically they are called as, they're recruited by the central government, but they are working with the respective states. So this is where Rajya Sabha has a power for creation or abolition of any all India service. Under Article 312, it is exclusive power of Rajya Sabha that it can make or it can make a new all India service, or it can discontinue any all India service. Clear? So that is how it is. So again, it requires 2/3 majority of members present and voting similarly, and it is going to make sure India's administrative integration by expanding or restructuring all such as IAS, IPS, or potential new services like Indian Health Service. ये exclusive power है Rajya Sabha का. Please remember the article numbers 249, 312. Then in case of removal of vice president, sir, it was in news very recently. So the Vice President of India is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. Clear? So here also, in case of removal of the Vice President of India, the Rajya Sabha has an exclusive power that a bill which is talking about the removal of the Vice President of India can only be introduced in the Rajya Sabha, right? Reflecting the Vice President's role as the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha, right? That's how it is. Then again, during national emergency, again, होता है ना the period of interregnum, अगर लोकसभा dissolve हो गई है, now emergency is going to be imposed or implemented in the country, right? So emergency has to be approved by both the houses of parliament. In case Lok Sabha is not in session, Rajya Sabha, being a permanent house, it can pass or it can approve the emergency until the Lok Sabha resumes. कि अगर मान लीजिए emergency लागू करना है, process बोलती है कि it has to be approved by both the houses of parliament. But एक condition ये भी है कि if Lok Sabha is not in session, Rajya Sabha has a power to impose or approve the respective emergency. That is the basic idea. Both three types of emergency. So if a proclamation of emergency, all three, national, presidential and financial, when Lok Sabha is not in session, it can be approved by Rajya Sabha alone, right? And it ensures continuity of national governance and security even during the electoral transition. So again, why are these powers mattering for the Rajya Sabha? क्यों important है for a democratic country? It reflects the federal character of Rajya Sabha. 3-4 लाइनें में बिल्कुल लिखिए इसको. It prevents excessive centralization requiring state representation in crucial national decisions. It provides checks and balances against potential majoritarian impulses on the Lok Sabha. It ensures continuity, that is Rajya Sabha is a permanent house not subject to dissolution. So again, this is why some special powers are given to Rajya Sabha and why does it matter for the country, right? So in conclusion, you can mention that although bolte hain ki Rajya Sabha is called as a weaker chamber, it's a perception, but again technically it has specific constitutional powers that is very meaningful in safeguarding the federalism and national stability of the country. Clear? Moving on to the next question. They're talking you to analyze the statement. Analyze is a keyword over here. So every keyword has a specific way or telling you a specific way in which you can write down the answer. Critically examine, discuss. Every keyword has a different meaning. Analyze basically means you're going to analyze the statement from multiple perspectives. ठीक है, स्टेटमेंट क्या दिया हुआ है? एनालाइज स्टेटमेंट. स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर्स आर ऑफन सीन एज द वॉइस ऑफ द स्टेट्स विद इन इंडियाज फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर. कि इंडिया फॉलो अ फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर and state legislatures are the ones who are ensuring that the state have a voice in the India's federal structure. So again, you are going to mention about the utility of having state legislatures. So कैसे अगेन एनालाइज मतलब क्या है? ये स्टेटमेंट को मानना नहीं कि सही है, ये आपको ये बताना है कि यू आर गोइंग टू analyze the statement कि yes, in some certain circumstances the state legislatures are the voice of respective states ensuring federalism, but again our constitution has also what? A unitary bias. So you can mention some features which is again tilting towards the unitary biases of the respective of the Indian constitution. So again, both perspectives dikhna hai. That is the meaning of the word analyze over here, right? So in general, we can start about that how state legislatures in the country is ensuring that the federal balance is maintained in the functioning of the country. यही आपका theme रहेगा to write down the introductions of your answers. Again thumb rule sir, that you need to understand पूछा क्या है question में. The theme is what? The role of state legislatures in maintaining what? The ideas of federalism, right? That should be your theme of the introduction of your answer, right? So again, you can mention that India's federal structure combines both strong center and with autonomous states, while Rajya Sabha represents the states at union level, right? State legislatures functions as the primary democratic forums where regional needs, cultural identities and developmental priorities are articulated, right? And they embody the political voice of states within the federal arrangement. This is one of the way. So technically you need to explain in introduction that how state legislatures are maintaining federal balance of the country in 1 or 2 lines. ठीक है? Then again the statement is analyzed, so we of course going to give both the perspectives, that again how state legislatures functions as the voice of states, right? So basic hai, humne dekha, we have discussed many times ki we have 3 lists, that again the state list consists of all subjects wherein state government or state legislatures can only make a law, right, except few situations where again article 249 में discuss किया हमने अभी. So majority of the time autonomy has been given to respective states, that again as and when you require and as and when you need, how you need it, you can make law on the respective subject. That is why we see different police laws in different states, we see different kind of agricultural laws, public health laws, because all of these matters are there in the stately subject. So every state has been given an autonomy that to make their own laws, keeping in mind the local conditions, the linguistic identities and social customs and economic needs. So यही utility क्या है state legislature का, कि सिर्फ state list के subjects हैं wherein they can make laws based on their local needs. Then we have expression of regional aspirations. So state legislatures give institutional space for regional issues, कि यहाँ पर हम सिर्फ national issues की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं. Here we are discussing about regional issues. For example, we can talk about, we are staying in let's say UP. So UP has some kind of specific problems which are of course not going to be addressed at a union level. So for that, state legislatures are the ones who are ensuring at state level the issues are discussed and addressed. Clear? So we have reservations and social, because every state have a different way of let's say representation in terms of administration. State PCS example ही है उसका, right? Then we have local agricultural needs, mandi system, land reforms. Again, autonomy has been given to the states. They can make laws on their own regional demands and aspirations. And language policies and cultural preservation. So basically they articulate identity based concerns and which are often overlooked at a national level. So technically, again, giving an expression to regional aspirations which are not very much or which are basically overlooked at a national level. Then we have fiscal and developmental prioritization. So again, just like we have a union budget, so every state, after getting funds or devolution of funds by the Finance Commission, they are passing their respective state budgets. So finance ke liye bhi every state has been given an autonomy that you manage your finances in your own manner. We are not going to interfere on that. So this is where states are passing their own state budget, right? They are determining the taxation powers they have, allocate resources to sectors like, again, budget में आपके ऊपर आपकी मर्जी है, based on your need, on your demand, on your let's say discretion, you can discuss and maybe determine how you're going to use the funds, and they shape developmental trajectories that differ across states. Example, Kerala's social sector model versus Gujarat's infrastructure led model. Example है केरला का अलग model है functioning of the finances. It is broadly towards social sector, socially maybe empowering people of the country of the Kerala, but again Gujarat has a different model of, let's say, functioning. They are basically infra led development, कि infra develop करोगे state automatically develop कर जाएगा. Clear? And in Kerala, what do you see? Why do you see on certain social parameters of literacy, education, Kerala is performing well? Because state का finance ही वहाँ focus ज़्यादा कर रहा है. गुजरात में क्यों देखते हो development ज़्यादा है? Because the state is developing or maybe spending more on infrastructure development. That's how it is seeing that again with infra development we are going to develop as a state. Kerala बोलती है कि हम people को develop करेंगे, then again we are going to develop as a state. So that's the difference between both of them. That autonomy has been given in the way they can manage their respective finances. Then we have strengthening democracy. So again, Panchayati Raj municipalities are kept in state lists. Of course, the state government have been given a power that you are empowered to implement the 73rd and 74th Amendment Act in your respective states in the manner you want, right? So again, we have different ways in which different states are managing their respective local bodies and municipalities, right? So that's how it is. Some functions of some features are mandatory to be implemented, some are voluntarily. It is up to the respective state government how they're implementing those. Clear? So then it is technically overseeing the entire Panchayati Raj institutions and local bodies, and they influence the governance at a very local level. Then we have political signaling to the union government. So many times to understand, in newspapers you're also coming across, आपने देखा होगा ना, 3 लैंग्वेज फॉर्मूला हुआ. अगेन द तमिलनाडु गवर्नमेंट put up in a position, oppose किया कि sir you are imposing Hindi on us. So again, this is where many times state have been putting up opinions that again how the respective union government is trying to overpower the respective state government. So again, many times through these state legislatures, the people from the respective state legislatures are signaling, politically signaling to the union government. For example, opposing or supporting the fiscal devolution, demanding greater autonomy, example language to cultural rights, passing resolutions on river water disputes, environmental problems, reservation of policies. This makes legislature a venue for intergovernmental negotiation. So these are the ways in which the state legislatures are ensuring federal balance in the country, right? But now there are some constraints as well. We have told that again the states in India, or the functioning of the federal system of the country, has a slight unitary bias. And then how it is affecting the respective state legislatures in maintaining federal balance, that has also been written in the answer. So although state legislatures are vital, क्या problems है? Number one, पार्लियामेंट्स डोमिनेंस ड्यूरिंग इमरजेंसी. सर इमरजेंसी में कंट्री बिल्कुल फेडरल सेटअप खत्म हो जाती है एंड द कंट्री बिकम्स एंटायर यूनिटरी वे. देयर इज नो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट, एवरीथिंग इज गोइंग टू बी हैंडल्ड बाय द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट. So that is again ensuring maintaining a fact that the federal balance or the federal nature of the country can become entirely unitary during the period of emergency, right? Then governor's discretionary power. Sir, स्टेट लॉ है, स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर को पावर मिली है कि यू कैन मेक अ लॉ ऑन दैट रिस्पेक्टिव सब्जेक्ट. Then why governor is being given power that it can reconsider the bills for presidential reconsideration? So that is again maybe diluting the autonomy of the respective state legislatures in making the respective law on state subject, that there is a possibility that the governor may reserve the bill for presidential accent and the president might not pass that particular bill, right? That is how it is. Then we have the fiscal dependence on center. So again, Finance Commission Article 380 is determining that how tax proceeds are going to be distributed between center and the states. So Finance Commission working under the central government. This is where again autonomy is lost, where again state finance commissions have no say in, or states in fact have no say in a manner how the proceeds of the tax are distributed between the respective central and the state government. Then we have Parliament's power over concurrent list and residuary power. We have discussed. We have 3 lists: union list, state list, concurrent list. Concurrent list में both can make a law, but in situations where again both the union law and a state law has been made on a subject on concurrent list, union law will prevail over state law. What is residuary list? Sir, again discussed yesterday that in 1950 the Constitution of India was being written. Schedule 7 had 3 lists which contains matters of union list, state list and concurrent list. Some topics or some matters of governance have emerged in our society. For example, in 1950 we did not had cryptocurrency, we did not had artificial intelligence, we did not had let's say drones. But now these new matters of governance have emerged in society. So we have kept a separate list called as reserve list. So the new matters of governance in the country would be kept over there. But who have a power to make law on residuary list subjects? The central government. This is where again our biasness have been made towards them, right? So that's how you're going to mention them. That in conclusion you can mention that again how despite constitutional limitations, state legislatures have been given enough autonomy in terms of maintaining the federal balance of the country, maintaining the local aspirations, shaping the regional development and articulating state interest in a national disclosure. Okay, that's how you can conclude down the answer. Then how does Indian Constitution ensure independence of the judiciary? Discuss the importance of basic structured doctrines. Sir, although a 8 marker question तो बिल्कुल short में लिखना है हमें इसको, but at a very detailed topic is there. I'll discuss very briefly the concepts first so that you can understand it, and then we are going to discuss the course of the answer. Sir, what is the meaning of independence of judiciary? So you understand in India we have 3 organs: executive, legislature and the judiciary. Legislature make laws, executive implements those laws, and judiciary is the one who is adjudicating that particular law. That अगर कोई law बना है, whether it is following or violating any part of the Indian Constitution or not, it is an organ which is providing justice in the country, right? So that is the task of judiciary, right? So we have a doctrine of separation of power कि हर part, हर organ को हमने divide कर दिया है कि तुम्हारा काम ये है, तुम्हारा काम ये है, तुम्हारा काम ये है. Now you understand, we have 2 levels of government, right? So one is that the government is working at 2 levels. अभी तो 3 level पे हो गया है, primarily the union level and at the state level. So we have also seen union government can make a law on which subject, union list, state का state list. क्या judiciary इस तरीके से function करती है parallelly? No sir. We have a system of integrated judiciary in the country. We have a level of courts, we have lower courts, we have high courts, and we have Supreme Court. Just like things are working parallelly for legislature and executive, we are completely integrated in a manner with respect to judiciary of the country. That is the meaning of integrated judiciary. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने किसी state law के against कोई crime किया है, then only that respective state high court can give you punishment. Even if you have committed a crime against a state law, any court in the country can give you punishment. Clear? That's the basic idea of having an integrated judiciary. Okay? Now judiciary in the country is going to become independent. Sir, क्यों जरूरी independence? If you understand, if look at the number of cases in Supreme Court or high courts or local courts, in majority of the cases, 60% के around the number is, one of the litigant is गवर्नमेंट. सरकार एक पार्टी तो होती है केस में. अब इफ जुडिशरी इज नॉट गोइंग टू बी मेड इंडिपेंडेंट, अब मान लीजिए जुडिशरी का केस है, वन ऑफ द पार्टी इज द गवर्नमेंट ऑल द टाइम, राइट? सो इफ जुडिशरी इज नॉट गोइंग टू बी मेड इंडिपेंडेंट, देयर आर हाई चांसेस दैट द गवर्नमेंट कैन इन्फ्लुएंस द डिसीजन मेकिंग ऑफ द जुडिशरी. ये चांसेस है, इसलिए बोला गया है कि वन ऑफ द बेसिक फीचर और इनफैक्ट अ बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर में भी आ गया है कि इंडिपेंडेंस ऑफ जुडिशरी इज वन ऑफ द बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर्स ऑफ इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. क्लियर? सो इंडिपेंडेंस को मेंटेन जुडिशरी क्यों जरूरी है? व्हाई? बिकॉज in majority of the cases which is there in judiciary, government is one of the party. If the judiciary is not made independent from the other 2 organs of executive and legislature, there are high chances that the justice delivery will not be fair in the country. We are clear on this? Okay. So this is how you're going to mention that again why independence of judiciary is important, what we have discussed. इसी को आपको लिखना introduction में, right? So what are the constitutional safeguards which are maintaining independence of judiciary? Let's discuss one by one. अब किस तरीके से maintain करते हैं सर उनका appointment, again it is very much in news recently. The new CGI has talked about that. Again we are going to reconsider the plea of considering the whole idea of reviving NJAC. Again just orally बोला है, it is not as of now, the Supreme Court is not going to hear that particular plea, but that is an important theme which can come up in the examination, the appointment of judges in the judiciary of the country, right? ये theme हो सकते हैं important this year के लिए. So this is how you're going to mention that what features of the Indian constitutions are making sure that again we have an independent judiciary in the country. Sir, the appointment of judges in the country are made in a manner that again executive and legislature will have a no say in the appointment process. So again currently we are following the collegium system. So Supreme Court judge along the CGI along with 4 senior most judges, are deciding who is going to be appointed to the judiciary, right? Both Supreme Court and High Court, thoda difference है process में, and then they are recommending the names to the President of India, and President is bound to accept the recommendation given by the CGI along with the 4 senior most judges. So again, this is where independence is maintained. कि हमने क्या maintain किया कि executive और legislature judicial appointment interfere नहीं कर सकते. Interfere करेंगे तो problem क्या आएगा सर? कि if मान लीजिए कि executive have a role in the appointment of judiciary, so the judges might start to act or favor the government with an hope कि सर मेरे को तो अपॉइंटमेंट मिल जाएगी अगर मैं गवर्नमेंट को सपोर्ट करूंगा तो. दैट्स अ बेसिक आइडिया. In order to maintain independence, appointment process is completely immune from the other 2 organs, that is executive and the legislature, through the collegium system what we have, right? Then we are also giving security of tenure. That again, security tenure means they are given that up to, let's say, a certain age limit, you are going to be there in the judiciary. आपको remove executive नहीं कर सकती है, the president cannot remove you. There has to be a impeachment process which is very tough to pass, and through that only the judges can be removed from their respective offices, right? So again, mention Article 124 Clause 4 and 217, the grounds on which the judges can be removed, and again on basically proven misbehavior and incapacity, ये भी defined, इसका मतलब क्या है, right? So basically ensuring what? Stability and fearlessness in terms of functioning of judiciary of the country. Then we have fixed service condition. मतलब unless and until कुछ financial emergency country में नहीं आती है, आपकी salary, आपके allowances decrease नहीं किए जाएंगे since the time you are appointed, because ये power किसके पास रहेगा? Parliament के पास रहेगा. So again, to make it immune or to give an independent status to judiciary, this is also being done, right? So salaries, allowances, privileges of judges cannot be altered to their disadvantage after appointment except during financial emergency. So again, इससे क्या हो रहा है? So the other 2 organs cannot financially overpower or financially pressure the executive or the judiciary of the country. Then we have charged expenditure. जितने भी salaries, allowances हैं, सारी होती है charged, and that is not subject to annual vote of the parliament. कि ये charged expenditure होती है सर, हमारे घर में भी एक budget होता है, there are certain expenditures that are charged expenditure. इसका मतलब क्या होता है कि they are fixed, ये तो होना ही होना है खर्चा, right? If you are staying in a home, if you are paying any rent, so irrespective of your expenditure, so there are certain fixed expenditures. So they are basically in the government system, they're called as charged expenditure, and they are not subject to vote by the parliament. So just salaries of the judiciary are charged expenditure. So again, every time parliamentary approval is not required for them to be done, right? That's the basic idea. Then prohibition on discussion on judicial conduct. So Article 211 prohibits that the conduct of judges are not going to be discussed in the parliament or state legislature except जब उनकी impeachment की बात हो रही है तभी आप उनके conduct को discuss कर सकते हैं, or you're not allowed to discuss the conduct of judges of both Supreme Court and High Court in the parliament and state legislature. Then ban on practice after retirement. Supreme Court judges cannot practice before any court or authority of India. It is to make sure what? अगर मान लीजिए if I am a Supreme Court judge, if I have a hope, right, that again I can again practice in any of the court of the country, I might start to take decisions under the influence of my post-retirement benefit. That is where ये ensure किया गया है कि the judges of Supreme Court which are retired cannot practice before any court of a law. So it prevents possible conflicts of interest or post-retirement inducements. Then power to punish for contempt. Sir, आपने बहुत सारी movies देखी जॉली लिल भी कि people can speak anything in the court, but again no, that is not correct. We have to maintain a decorum of the court, and the judges have a power to punish the people who are misbehaving in the court. There are contempts of 2 types, civil and criminal. So the judges have a power to punish people for contempt of court. Clear? देन सेपरेशन फ्रॉम एग्जीक्यूटिव, ये एक बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर ही मेंशन किया गया है कि आर्टिकल, इनफैक्ट द डीपीएसपी आर्टिकल 50 टॉक्स अबाउट दैट इट इज द ड्यूटी ऑफ द स्टेट टू सेपरेट जुडिशरी फ्रॉम द एग्जीक्यूटिव इन पब्लिक सर्विसेज. It ensures administrative independence and particularly at a subordinate court level. So this is how we are maintaining independence of judiciary. अब आता है basic structure doctrine. इसके बारे में बेसिक छोटा सा लिखना है, राइट. सो अगेन व्हाट इज बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर डॉक्ट्रिन, वेरी ब्रीफली. सर, इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बना 1950 में, right? We have discussed the amending process. So Parliament, using that powers of amendment to the Constitution, started to make changes in the Constitution as and when they were requiring it. लैंड रिफॉर्म्स लाना है तो राइट प्रॉपर्टी को हटा के फंडामेंटल राइट से लीगल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन राइट कर दो. एंड देयर वर मेनी सच चेंजेस व्हिच वर बीइंग डन बाय द पार्लियामेंट थ्रू अमेंडमेंट प्रोसेस. सो इट वाज सीन कि द पार्लियामेंट इज गेटिंग वेरी सुप्रीम पावरफुल इन लेट्स से द फंक्शनिंग और ऑल्टरिंग द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. बट who is the protector and interpreter of the Indian Constitution? Sir, the judiciary. So judiciary stepped up in the year 1973. Kerala में case हुआ था, Shirur Math case, and Keshavananda Bharati was the one of the litigants. In the very famous Keshavananda Bharati case, it was discussed that the parliamentary powers of amending to the constitution is not absolute. There is something which is called as basic structure doctrine, which cannot be altered at any instance. And time and again after that judgment, Supreme Court has defined what constitutes its basic structure. So the current status is everything in the parliament can be amended except what is there in that basic structure doctrine. This basic structure doctrine is not mentioned in the Indian Constitution. Supreme Court time and again through different Supreme Court judgments have discussed and defined what constitutes the basic structure doctrine of the Indian Constitution. Independence of judiciary is again coming under the basic structure doctrine of Indian Constitution. तभी ये पूछा गया इस क्वेश्चन के साथ, right? So we're going to mention basically limiting the powers of the parliament, article 368 हमने डिस्कस किया हुआ ये. It is upholding the supremacy of the constitution, basic structure doctrine. Then it is protecting judicial review. Judicial review is again a basic structure doctrine कि anything made by the parliament or any policy implemented by the executive is not beyond judicial review. Judiciary के पास power है, it can review the policies and the laws made by the executive and legislature respectively, that they are not violating the text of the Indian Constitution. And this feature of judicial review is a part of basic structure doctrine. Clear? Then safeguarding fundamental rights, of course, article 32 coming under basic structure doctrine, right? So all of them is ensuring that again Supreme Court or the judiciary is called as the guardian of the Indian Constitution, right? So again we can mention that how judicial independence is in India protected, carefully crafted constitutional framework and enforced by the evolution of basic structure doctrine. Together these mechanisms ensure that impartial justice, prevent concentration of power and preserving fundamental rights and upholding the spirit of constitutional democracy in the country. Clear? So with this we come to the end of today's discussion of polity questions. So that's how we have discussed the, I think, 13 questions of polity from 2023 and 2024. Now there are certain important themes which are there in newspapers. You're going to see them after analyzing the question paper. It is clear that the questions are maybe are very implicitly targeting towards the recurring themes in the newspapers, right? So you can expect questions around judiciary. Again, you can expect questions around elections. You can expect questions around the theme of the role of governor, right? So these are three prominent themes which are there in news since last 1 year. So topic of governor, the topic of election, the topic of judiciary, appointments of judiciary, right? All of them are in news, and that is where these three themes I think are very important, which could be there in this year's examination. So keep preparing, keep writing, keep practicing the keep practicing answer writing process. At least write those 13 answers what we have discussed after discussion. That's how you'll get a confidence that again I have prepared, I have a skill, I have developed a skill of answer writing, and then you will feel confident once you approach the mains examination. So keep writing, keep revising, keep reading. All the very best.